Hey everyone! Today we're going to bake these perfectly chewy chocolate chip cookies. They're crisp on the edges and have the softest, chewiest center. They're also vegan and I pinky promise no one will ever be able to tell. So let's start by getting our chocolate ready. In my opinion, the ultimate chocolate chip cookie needs to have the perfect ratio of sweet milky chocolate and slightly bitter dark chocolate. For this recipe today, we're going to use a mix of Whittaker's oat milk plant-based chocolate and also Lind's 70% dark chocolate. But feel free to change it up any way you like. A ratio of 60 dark chocolate to 40 milk chocolate gives you a really nice balance. Now we're going to chop the chocolate roughly into small chunks. If you prefer chocolate chips, go for it. Chopped chocolate in cookies dough is a game changer. Because they're not uniformly shaped, you get a nice mix of small and big chunks of chocolate in the cookie. Plus, the slithers of chocolate dust will melt into your dough, flavoring it even further. In total, we need 250 grams of chocolate. With the 60-40 ratio, that's 150 grams dark chocolate and 100 grams milk chocolate. The ingredients are listed in the description box below. So now that we have our chocolate, we can set it aside and move on to our wet ingredients. Here we have 150 grams of softened vegan butter, or in my case, room temperature butter because it's so hot here. Scoop this into a large bowl. Into the bowl, we're going to add a secret ingredient that will give you the chewiest of cookies. That ingredient is corn syrup, which is an invert sugar. You can use the light or dark variety. I'm using the light one for a more neutral taste. As you can see, corn syrup is super gloopy and thick. There's a ton of science behind it, but to put it in layman's terms, invert sugars like liquid glucose and corn syrup help prevent crystallizing of sugars in baked goods, so you get a result that is more chewy and bendy versus crispy and crunchy. We don't need a lot of it, just 25 grams. Next, let's add 1 tablespoon of plant-based milk and 1 teaspoon of good quality vanilla extract. This works better with a whisk, so I'm going to switch out my spatula for it. And there, that's much better. We're not trying to cream the butter, we just want a nice homogeneous mix where the liquid and butter emulsify just like this. For sugars, we need a mix of two, 150 grams of coconut sugar and 80 grams of white sugar. Coconut sugar has a very toasty, caramelly sort of flavor and it helps contribute to the tenderness of the final cookie. If you can't find coconut sugar, you can swap it out for dark brown sugar. We're also going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt to this. Swap the whisk for the spatula and mix the sugars with the butter. There's no need to be precise here, as long as they're well combined, we're good. Okay, that's the wet ingredients done, so for the dry ingredients we need 325 grams of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. We're going to sift the dry ingredients directly into the wet ingredients. Then with the same spatula, stir the flour into the butter. The consistency of this dough is fairly dry and crumbly, which may be different from what you're used to if you bake cookies all the time, but trust the process. Once most of the flour has been mixed in, about halfway through, we can get our chocolate chunks. Reserve about a handful of the chocolate chunks to decorate the cookies later. Then the rest we can pour into the dough. Mix until the dough is uniformly damp, like wet sand, and you don't see any dry flour spots left. If you're feeling like your cookie dough is a little bit dry, add some extra plant-based milk, 1 tablespoon at a time. Many things can affect dough hydration, like different flour brands or even the humidity, so you have to go by feel at this stage. But you won't need like a whole cup of milk, maybe like 1 or 2 tablespoons max. This is the texture we're going for. Wet sand that forms into a ball when compressed. Portion the dough out into balls. Grab about 45 to 50 grams of dough, about 1/3 of a cup, and squeeze then shape it into a ball. This recipe makes 20 cookies of that size. Feel free to make them smaller or bigger, you'll just have to adjust the cooking time. I'll add a note in the description box below. Once all the dough has been portioned on a tray, we want to flatten them by pressing down with the palm of our hand. I know the cookies are sitting really close to each other at the moment, but don't worry, we're not going to bake them just yet. Take pieces of the reserved chocolate from earlier and press them down into the cookie. If the cookie starts cracking on the edges, just reshape them in our hands like this. Okay, now I have some bad news. As much as you want these cookies to be baked immediately, I highly recommend that you refrigerate them for at least 12 hours. As the dough sits in the fridge, the flavors mingle and develop into this deep, toasty, nutty flavor that will not be present if you bake it right away. Trust me on this. 12 hours minimum, but ideally 24 hours. If you have space in the fridge, you can just put cling wrap over the entire tray and pop it in the fridge. Or arrange the cookies into an airtight container. Of course, I've already prepared a batch. They've been sitting in the fridge for about 22 hours, so we can start baking them now. We can bake them straight, there's no need for them to come up to room temperature. Arrange them on a parchment-lined tray, about 2 inches apart from each other to allow for some room to spread. We're going to bake these in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius or 356 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 minutes, rotating the entire tray halfway. When they just come out of the oven, they'll be quite soft, so we're going to leave them to cool for about 10 minutes and then we can transfer them to a wire rack. Once the cookies are completely cooled, they will develop a nice crisp outer edge while still retaining that soft chewy center. This is the perfect cookie to dunk into some milk, or for me, it's the perfect accompaniment to an oat milk cappuccino. So good. If you enjoyed this video, remember to hit the subscribe button. Also, I know you're going to love this video, so watch that one next and I will see you over there. Thanks for watching.